observing. CIOOS stands for the Canadian Integrated Ocean Observing System. And I'm speaking to you from Halifax, Nova Scotia, which is located in Mi'kmaq, the ancestral and unceded territory of the Mi'kmaq. Today's discussion is the first in a three-part series. The discussion today will run approximately 2 hours, concluding at 3 p.m. Atlantic Standard Time. Suddenly I had this sudden fear that I was on mute. Okay, I'm not. Before we turn to the session itself, there are a few housekeeping notes regarding the Zoom platform that we are using to run the series. And I'm going to turn the microphone over to Kieran right now, who's going to walk you through those housekeeping details. Take it away.
Of course. Can we switch it to the next slide? Yeah, so there is the Zoom chat window here, just to go over a couple of the details with Zoom. There is no wrong entry for questions, so you can either post them directly into the chat box, just in the side there. You'll see that there's a chat button below, in the bar below. You can raise your hand on Zoom. That feature is available if you go to the More button. You'll see that there's reactions and you can raise your hand. You can also post in the chat on mobile, and the instructions are there as well. You just tap the screen to make sure the control bar appears, tap the participants at the bottom of the list, tap chat, and type your message, and then type send in order to send the message off. And in order to join the conversation, you can mute and unmute in the corner. And you can also stop and start your video as needed as well. And if you have any questions or concerns, please feel free to reach out to Olivia Handspiker or Daniel Kite. They will be available all session in order to help you with any technical difficulties.
Thanks, Kieran. And specifically, how can people reach out to you or Olivia? Can you just walk us through how to do that?
Of course. You can reach out either by raising your hand, and we'll be monitoring the room in order to see if anybody has any difficulties, or you can just type directly into the chat and we can assist you that way as well.
Fantastic. And sometimes I know my internet connectivity drops off. So if anyone has any problems with internet, we also have phone-in options. And Kieran, I wonder whether you might plunk in the phone-in options into the chat so that people can copy and paste that into their own documents in the event that they need to call in. Thank you.
No worries.
Okay, thanks for that orientation. And just to reiterate, there's really no wrong way to ask a question when the time is right. Please use any of those options that Kieran has spelled out. So I'm now very pleased to turn things over to Katherine Martin, who is the Director of Community Indigenous Engagement for Dalhousie University, who will be offering a welcome and a chant.
Medolok Nin Gadlinan Motai and Weligiskuk. Hello, my name's Katherine Martin, and it's a beautiful day. Can you hear me okay? Yeah? Okay.
We can hear you.
All right. I thank you for inviting myself and our respected elders to speak to you today. And in keeping with my teachings from many wonderful people in my community, I want to welcome you to our unceded Mi'kmaq territory and share with you some of the knowledge that I've been lucky to be part of. Always, as Sarah Denny of Eskasoni told me and taught me, that we always sing before a gathering in celebration and to welcome all nations. And today I'm going to do that, and in honor of not only Sarah Denny, but all of those that kept our traditions alive and our culture and our songs and our language during a time that it was not, it was against the law here in Canada. Guano day, Guanalia guanodana Guanalia guanode Guanalia guanode Guanalia guanoda Ego igane Ego igana Guanalia guanodanahi Guanalia guanodanahi Guanalia guanode Guanalia guanode Guanalia guanoda Deyoka 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 Guanalia guanodanahi Guanalia guanodanahi Guanalia guanode Guanalia guanode Guanalia guanoda The drum represents the heartbeat of Mother Earth and also the heartbeat of our mother. And like Mother Earth, when we hear the heartbeat, we're listening to a language that we once all knew when we were inside the womb of our mother, inside of those sacred waters, just like Mother Earth's womb, the ocean. And this is what we all heard. And if we go back to remembering that time inside of our mother's womb, we can all understand one another, because as I've been always taught, speak from your heart and you're going to speak the truth, because that's the language of your mother and the language of the heart. And that's always gotten me by, especially when I'm nervous before any kind of event. And once in a while I get nervous. But if I bring the drum, and I know Ed, my elders, Albert and Ed are gonna pick up with anything I have forgotten, then I feel okay. So Mother Earth and Grandmother Moon are the ones that are so responsible for life and for continuing the life and the cycle of our life. Grandmother Moon is responsible for keeping the cycle going. She's someone who makes sure that the moon rises and it sets, that the sun rises and sets, that the tides come and they go, because she is so powerful. She helps us to keep time by the phases of the moon, by the 13 moons. And so we've been taught to look to her and look to Mother Earth for our help. And right now, we're spending a lot of time praying for the goodness of people, to try to bring back the health of our earth, to clean up our oceans, so that our relatives, the fish, the birds, the trees, can begin to enjoy a much healthier life and will start to come back to us in a way that we haven't seen before. So Mother Earth and Grandmother Moon kept trying to give us some kind of warnings, disasters, climate change, and we didn't listen. So she's so powerful that she unfortunately had to show us what it would be like if we had to shut the whole world down, and she shut it down. And we've spent some time with ourselves in our homes and around our own surroundings, watching, looking at what can happen if we do sit and we do listen to the ocean, to the moon, to the sun. We listen to the teachings from the stars and the animals. Mother Earth has been damaged almost beyond what anybody could imagine, almost beyond repair, but she's continued to survive, even though, especially in the last 500 years, she has seen such change in the way that she's treated. Mother Earth, her womb, the ocean, the sky is the air that she's given us to breathe and to live. Yet we haven't respected that, and we've disrespected the mother who's given us all we need to live. So my time today is to listen to what's going on around me. I see the birds coming, different ones. I see different plants growing at different times. Some of it is because we've shut ourselves away and down and we're stopped polluting. And some of it is because the world is changing and because of climate change. And if we listen to the oceans and we listen to the fish and we listen to everything around us, we can learn a lot more about how it is we need to move forward. How in the next 7 generations, we can do something now to make sure, like our ancestors before us, that we have a good life and a good place to live. I welcome you to our territory, to the unceded territory of the Mi'kmaq, and we are going to hear from our relatives, our elders today, and I am honored that we're able to do that still today, even through technology, which we're doing pretty well at. So my story about the ocean is just what I've told you. What I know about it, I'm a filmmaker, so I've been privileged to meet so many people on the journey of telling the stories and recording stories. One of them recently was an 8-day canoe trip on Churchill River up in Labrador with Elizabeth Panashaway, who goes every year on a canoe trip, before with her husband Frank, but now by herself. And now I think she has stopped. And she goes along the Churchill River to see how everybody's doing, how the bear, how the salmon, how the beaver, how the birds are doing. And she says hello to them and she welcomes them and they welcome her. And I witnessed that on that 8-day canoe journey with her and her family. And it's a commitment she makes. It's not just to have a canoe trip. It's a commitment she's made to the earth and to the water and to nature around her, that she will every year come in and check on how things are. And unfortunately, the damages that have been done by the Churchill Falls and the Muskrat Falls, she sees that. And by her taking this journey every year and walking her land every year, she is reclaiming or maintaining that responsibility and connection to the land and the water. I also was privileged way back in 1997, 8, and 9 to go on a birch bark canoe trip. I was in an escort boat with the chief Michelle Joe of Maliseet River and his crew, who paddled a birch bark canoe from Newfoundland to Nova Scotia to heal our nations, to bring our families back together and to heal their own nation. And by taking that journey that they had not taken for over 100 years in a birch bark canoe, they were retracing the paths of their ancestors and reclaiming and ensuring that that the Creator and the spirits and the ocean knows that we're still here and we're still here to help. That journey was a wonderful journey to teach us, each individual. There was 8 or 9 of us on the journey, and we learned so much from the ocean. We were so naive about the power of the ocean. And even though today you're driving huge steamships and trawlers and, raping the ocean with these big, huge vessels and taking all the fish, even though you have those powerful things, the ocean is more powerful. And we unfortunately keep learning that through the losses of just recently, the losses of men down in Yarmouth. And I send my good thoughts and prayers to the families who are at this time trying to understand what happened. The ocean is powerful, and we have to respect it in order to live a good way. So I learned a lot about the ocean, a couple funny things, and the trip was hard, but it was also had lots of laughter. That is a medicine that has kept us alive for so long, just having a good laugh. Even though we lost one canoe in the middle of a North Atlantic storm in the middle of the night, even though there was times we had to wait for days to dry out the canoe before they could get back into this birch bark canoe. What we learned, not only the power, but the strength and the resilience of our ancestors to have paddled canoes only before anybody arrived with their big ships, and still paddle and make them today from our natural resources. And I'm so proud to have been invited to be on that journey. And when we arrived to the other shore, we met people like Albert Marshall and others who were so proud and happy that we reclaimed that journey that my grandparents, my great-grandparents made all the time. With that, I thank you for inviting me, and I will see you a little bit later when we bring on the superheroes to our day. Well, then.
Thank you so much, Katherine, for the welcome and for the chant and for reminding me to speak from my heart. I forgot to mention earlier on that we are recording this session for those who are unable to attend. So I'd like to now take about 10 minutes to share a little bit about CIOOS Atlantic. So as I mentioned before, my name is Christina McDonald. I'm an engagement specialist with CIOOS Atlantic, and I'm based in Halifax.
And I'm Kelly Santos. I'm also a CIOOS Atlantic engagement specialist, and I'm based at the Marine Institute in St. John's, Newfoundland.
And thank you very much, all of you, for joining us today. We have people tuning in from across the continent and around the world, and with diverse representation from government, universities, including students, non-governmental organizations, Indigenous organizations and communities, other ocean observing systems, and industry. I would like to begin by acknowledging the Indigenous peoples of all the lands that we are on today. While we meet today on a virtual platform, I would like to acknowledge the importance of the lands which we each call home. We do this to reaffirm our commitment and responsibility to improve relationships between nations and to improve our own understanding of local Indigenous peoples and their cultures. Please take a moment today in reflection to acknowledge the harms and mistakes of the past and to consider how we can each, in our own way, try to move forward in a spirit of reconciliation and collaboration. And we are very honored that Elder Albert Marshall and Elder Edward Perley are sharing their knowledge with us today after this presentation. I encourage you to be fully present for this discussion so that we collectively create a space where we are listening deeply to what is being shared and how it is being shared. If you feel comfortable, please turn on your cameras. That's not a requirement, but please do if you would like. And just a reminder to please keep yourself on mute when you are not talking. I'd like to now turn it over to Kelly. Take it away, Kelly.
Thanks, Christina. So as Christina said, I'm just going to launch into a brief introduction to CIOOS and CIOOS Atlantic. So the Canadian Integrated Ocean Observing System, or CIOOS, is a national initiative. We currently have 3 regional associations based here in Atlantic Canada, 1 in the St. Lawrence region and 1 in British Columbia. CIOOS Atlantic is supported by a number of partners: the Ocean Frontier Institute, Memorial University, Dalhousie University, the Ocean Tracking Network, Coin Atlantic, and the Marine Institute. And we would also like to acknowledge the support of our funders for this discussion series, the Ocean Frontier Institute and Canada's Ocean Supercluster. So what is it we do at CIOOS? CIOOS supports people and organizations across sectors to share their coastal and ocean knowledge. Many people and organizations are involved with ocean observing activities, particularly Indigenous peoples who have been observing the coasts and the oceans here for 14,000 years. But too often, information and data is collected for a particular purpose or to answer a particular question, and then that information is shelved or it's stored away, and it makes it very difficult to reuse this information for other initiatives or other purposes. So the objective of CIOOS is to increase the discovery, access, and reuse of coastal and ocean knowledge through an online platform so that others can benefit from this information by applying this knowledge to their own work, whether it's focused on coastal and ocean stewardship, economic innovation, maritime safety, or marine transport. And in each of the 3 regional associations, we have staff who can work with you to make your data available or to use data from our online platform. CIOOS Atlantic is committed to working with Indigenous people in meaningful and respectful ways. And this discussion series is one way that we're learning how Indigenous and Western knowledge systems for coastal and ocean observing can be brought together to advance shared goals. Throughout the course of the 3-part series, we will hear from and learn from First Nation elders and Indigenous and non-Indigenous people who are already deeply involved in this work. Throughout our engagement to date, we've come to understand that all knowledge or data can or should be openly shared. There's a long history of researchers misusing, decontextualizing, or stealing Indigenous knowledge. And in discussion 2, we'll hold a discussion panel with 4 guest speakers that will focus on the legal, ethical, and value considerations that surround digitizing, sharing, and managing access to Indigenous knowledge and data. There are also situations where, under the right conditions, with the right collaboratively developed agreements, Indigenous knowledge and data have been shared. And our discussions in session 3 and our speakers in session 3 will highlight these collaborations and focus on these successful collaborations. So if you haven't already done so, we strongly encourage you to reach out to us so that you can get yourself registered for these follow-on sessions and hopefully join these discussions. Back to you, Christina.
Thanks, Kelly. So why is knowledge sharing about our oceans important? As Katherine spoke to in her welcome, our oceans sustain us in all ways. They feed us, they regulate our climate, they generate most of the oxygen we breathe, and they also serve as the foundation for much of the world's economy and shape our culture and recreation. Our coastal and ocean observations are telling us that our oceans are changing quickly because of human activities and inaction to address the climate crisis. I had the opportunity to talk with Stanley Oliver, who I believe has joined us on the call today. Stanley is with Nunatuavut Community Council, and he shared with me that fishermen in South and Central Labrador are starting to see striped bass where they never saw them before. So we know that fish are moving north. Elder Edward Perley shared with me that growing up on the banks of the Wolastoq and Tobique rivers, he would see a certain kind of tree that was nourished by the scat of bears feeding on salmon and other fish, and that he doesn't see that tree as much anymore. And data collected from thousands of free-floating instruments are showing that the world's oceans reached their hottest level in recorded history in 2020. On top of this, there are other complex issues that we as individuals or the organizations that we represent are facing. COVID has turned the world on its head. Many of you are working to uphold treaty rights and conduct land claim negotiations. And you may also be receiving many requests for engagement in these kinds of knowledge and data sharing initiatives. No one organization or people can generate all the information by themselves. We need to find ways to work together and respectfully use our different knowledge systems and the insights gained from them to take care of our oceans. And that brings me to the goals of this three-part discussion series. CIOOS Atlantic would like to learn where our goals may align with Indigenous organizations and how we could collaborate to advance our goals through the digitization and sharing of ocean and coastal knowledge. We have brought together individuals who are stewards of Indigenous knowledge to learn from you, to strengthen networks, create new connections, and discuss opportunities for collaboratively developing approaches to exchange coastal and ocean data and information. After the three-part discussion series closes on February 16th, the team at CIOOS Atlantic will develop a What We Heard document to circulate to you that will also identify possible next steps for collaboration, should that emerge out of the discussions, and I hope it does. So again, thank you all very much for joining us. And I would now like to turn it over to Katherine Martin, who has very kindly offered to moderate the elders discussion with Elder Albert Marshall and Elder Edward Perley. So thank you, and Katherine, I invite you to take the mic once again.
Oh, well then, Christine. Christine, congratulations, we've finally made it to this day. As I said earlier, I've been given the honor to introduce and welcome Ed and Albert to share with you some of their understandings about our connection and relationship and our contract, our responsibility with the earth and the oceans and the universe. And you couldn't find two better people than Albert and Ed. Albert Marshall is a member of the Eskasoni Mi'kmaq community. It's based, if you look at the map and you follow it, he's up there in Cape Breton, and you just go to Sydney, and just before Sydney, you turn left and you drive down, and there you are. Almost the first house is Albert's. You can't miss it. They always say. And you shouldn't miss it if you know him. You should always drop in. Ed, he lives down there in the land of the Great River, the Wolastoq River, the people of the Wolastoq, and he is a good friend and somebody who is going to bring to us some, not only just knowledge, but some prayers and thoughts and welcomes from his territory. Wolastoq, Mi'kmaq, Passamaquoddy, Penobscot are part of the Wabanaki Confederacy. We're all people of the dawn. And so Ed and his people are our closest relatives. So with that, I'd like to ask Dr. Albert Marshall to start us off with anything that comes from your heart, and you'll be so happy to learn. Hi, Albert.
Hi, Kathy. Thanks for the introduction.
Haven't seen you for a while.
Yes, anyway, my name is Albert Marshall, and I am from the Moose clan, and I am from Mi'kmaq, which includes Wolastoqiyik. But I happen to reside in a community called Eskik-Okanawagi here in Cape Breton. The reason why I like to start my introduction this way is that I like to bring back this idea of what our forefathers have brought forth for us, and that we always have to think in a collective way. That no one person could actually know everything there is to know of who they are from that culture. No one individual could possibly know every aspect of our environment. But I believe what they left for us though is that responsibility to constantly exercise our inherent responsibility of why we are here and what we must do to ensure that our individual ways or collective ways cannot and should not compromise the ecological integrity of the area, and so to compromise the future generations of their abilities. And I am very enlightened, of course, at this juncture that the conversation that I'm hearing is that apparently people are comfortable of saying that there is a great need. I'm trying to shut this damn thing off. There is a great need for some kind of a transformative change. And within that transformative change, I believe the roadmap forward has to be one of which we, the Aboriginal people, we can bring forth the principles and the ideologies that were left for us by our grandparents, by our ancestors. And of course, we do welcome other perspectives, other knowledge bases from people that are here, because we believe, we will agree that the environment is a very complex system. And it will require just as much complex issues or solutions to be able to address some of those transformative changes that needs to occur. And I, as an Aboriginal person, when I invoke my two-eye seeing, first of all, I see everything for my Aboriginal men. I see everything and I hear everything what our ancestors have left for us. And I do everything in my power to uphold those principles. At the same time, I have this inherent responsibility, not only to make sure that my personal actions will not and should not compromise the ecological integrity of the area, and also look forward of ensuring that the future generations will also have the same opportunities as I have, and hopefully better. And when I invoke my two-eye seeing, I cannot help but think about the word nedukulim. Nedukulim, of course, in our language, gives you a privilege to extract and to use the gifts from the Creator. But you do not have the right to compromise or to transform your actions into negative in which it will compromise the ecological integrity of the area. And now even we have to include the cleansing capacity of that system. So this is something that should be embraced collectively. But then again, when I look at when we do read into some of your policies, and when I read into your policies and whatever you want to call them, they only will emphasize socioeconomics and leave the environment in the background. Now that is just total opposite of what this word medical implies. So if we are totally agree that there is a great need of some kind of a change, then the question that we have to ask is that how willing will say, you know, your agencies, your departments, to be able to reflect of exactly how we got here and at what harm have we caused to the very source of life we have, in this case, the oceans. I don't know how many here would agree with me that this is our last hope, in my humble opinion, of preserving and creating an opportunity for humanity to keep on existing. The forests are gone, in which we totally depend on for our existence, for clean air, clean drinking water, and a fertile soil. But because of greed, she no longer can do what they were supposed to do. And that and the essential component, of course, is our lungs. So that only leaves us now one more thing, and that's the oceans. But yet, this arm of destruction that has been brought forth through your science and technology, no one is willing to address that. Everyone is just agreeing to say, you know, yes, we are reflecting, but you know, for the sake of socioeconomics, it has to be business as usual. And if that is the case, I don't see how and where there will be an opportunity for us to get engaged into this kind of a dialogue, because we are coming for so far apart of where we stand and what we believe. So how can we be reassured? We talk about the concept of Tuwai Ed Waktim. And as much as humanly possible, we expect that this concept has to be taken as a very action-oriented. And for that to come in reality, again, I have to ask this question: how willing is there an appetite and a willingness for your particular department to be able to at least not just to acknowledge, but also try to at least do everything humanly possible as to how can we integrate something that has managed to sustain the Aboriginal people of this hemisphere for thousands and thousands of years without at any point there was a need for concern if we are compromising the ecological integrity of the area. Now, these words of mine, I know they're not challenging, but I know nobody wants to hear them. You see, and on the other side, I don't want the principles that our ancestors, what my ancestors have endured, and yet managed to live up to those, to be only used as tokens. Unless I believe, if we can agree that if there's going to be some kind of a relationship between us all, between the government, which you are part of, and with the Aboriginal people, there has to be a trust-like relationship, not something in which that a Mi'kmaq concept here and there will only be able to use to crystallize whatever you are doing. So these are the hard questions I am asking. And I am not saying that on behalf of, but I am saying as a Mi'kmaq person that has been given the opportunity to live this long and to be able to observe and to see how our source of life has been driven to a point of extinction. And again, we have to ask ourselves, what can we do? Obviously, there's nothing we can do because demographically, we make up less than few percent of your total population. We don't have the numbers, we don't have the clout. So, and of course, when those legislations and policies were drafted, no one was thinking about the original inhabitants of this hemisphere. Those policies and legislations were written so that someone can maximize their efforts at no matter what cost. So I'm not apologizing. I am just conveying to you what's in my heart. What's in the heart of many Aboriginal people in this geographical area, in which it has broken our hearts watching and observing the rate of destruction that has been cast upon our mother, the earth, which we all solely depend upon. Tell me, who can live long without clean drinking water? Who can live long without clean air? And most of all, the fertile soil. And this is where I believe it should become obvious to us that we don't need scientific data to tell us at this juncture that we actually have allowed to our silences, to our indifferences of someone to compromise the ecological integrity of the area and to compromise the very source of life for everyone. So I wish sometimes we had given the gift of being able to convey this kind of a message in which it will somehow resonate to where it needs to be, rather than just look upon our traditional knowledge as something in which it sounds very philosophical, but in fact has no practical application to it. But I would dare challenge that way of thinking, and try to explain to me in a reasonable way, how did our forefathers for so many thousands and thousands of years have managed to coexist in balance and harmony with the source of life? There has to be, and there are, lessons in which we can extract from that to help us forge ahead in a much more ecologically sustainable way. Because I don't see anywhere that when these acts or legislations are being enforced, it talks about anything about conservation. Doesn't talk about anything about the original people of this hemisphere, in which we have, and it has, proven beyond reasonable doubt that we still have treaty and Aboriginal rights and sovereignty to our lands and to ourselves. But no one, no one is even contemplating those things because of the fact, because of our small numbers, everybody feels quite secure that we don't have to listen to those people. There's so few anyway. But for all this length of time, in the last 400 or 500 years, since we have become contact with the other people from other countries, we have somehow managed, through resilience and through determination, to uphold the principles that were left for us by our ancestors. We still have the language. We still can think. I still can think as a Mi'kmaq person, and I can still express myself as a Mi'kmaq person, in which I don't have to use English to speak Mi'kmaq. Because if that was the case, then I would have to admit and ask myself, who am I? Because if I do not have the language, that question becomes much more problematic. Because the essence of who we are, the principles and the ideologies are all ingrained in the language. And we need that more so today, because if we allow this trend to continue any longer, even as I speak, we're losing our knowledge holders on a daily basis. And if we wait any longer, where are we going to go? You, no matter what your identity is, you can always go back to your mother country and reconnect to your culture and to your language. But we are home. And if our language is gone, where do we go? We got no other place to go. This has been our home, and this is our home, and this always will be our home. So, and I know that I sympathize with the facilitators here, that even though to I seen implies of inviting and embracing the spirit of collaboration and inviting and embracing the spirit of co-learning. But before that can happen, though, we have to come to reality and see the current state of our source of life at this juncture. And if we are really thinking about that seriously, I'm sure you will appreciate this kind of a dialogue, or this kind of a dialogue in which maybe you don't want to hear. But this dialogue is essential from our perspective, because that is and always will be our inherent responsibility to be the eye, the ear, and the voice for Mother Earth. And it is to our inherent responsibility to ensure that while our stay is here, we will not allow ourselves or allow anyone else to compromise the ecological integrity of the area. And now we have to worry about the cleansing capacity of our system. So I believe, and I don't hope, because I don't foresee, we have not heard any indications from any, whether it's DFO, DNR, environment, DND, of actually making some concerted efforts of trying to include us in their dialogue. No, it only happens maybe once a year, the Ocean Day or whatever. Bring a native in and let him or her pour out her heart of who she is. Well, I feel sorry for those poor people, because they will go forward, and we will go forward continuously with hopes that maybe not this group, but maybe someone within that group might really hear and listen the message that we are trying to convey, that we are not the superior being here, and will constantly remind us that nature has rights. We, the humans, have responsibility. And most importantly, hopefully we will hear and to listen and admit that the laws of nature has to supersede the laws of man, because it's the laws of man that we are caught into this situation now, in which for some reason or somehow we're going to try to make a vague attempt of trying to send a message to the so-called policymakers of maybe fine-tuning their policies to be much more holistic, in which the essence of life will become our overall objective. Thank you.
Well, Alan, so much that you said, Albert, I would like to repeat all over, but we have a recording so we can listen over and over and over again. The law of the land, of nature, has to supersede the law of man. It doesn't even call us, it doesn't even include the women, the law of man. So that is a drastic action that has to be taken if everybody takes some time to listen. So while you were speaking, we've been welcomed and thanked by people from around the world. You'll be able to see that. But the first one of them is from New Zealand. And that to me is the power of this panel and of this whole new way of communicating. We can connect everybody. Oh. Okay, the video. Okay. We can connect everybody around the world. And I really believe that if we don't keep everybody around the world participating in this drastic turnaround where we let the laws of nature dictate and take precedence, we won't get anywhere. And we won't get anywhere if we're just us continuing to try to live and be responsible to the land and not listen. So Ed, Perley, and myself, we've been on some journeys together. I guess they want me to start my video, but I have. Can't you see me?
I can see you.
Okay.
Yeah.
I keep getting a note saying start your video. Ed, Perley, and we talked a lot this morning, but we've also journeyed quite a bit to here and there. And I think much of the focus of my travels with Ed and many others is to go wherever the youth are inviting us to come and be with them, because they are the ones that are inheriting this mess, and they seem to have a lot of knowledge to help us to know what to do and where to go and what our future is about. So the two-eyed seeing that Albert and his wife, Merdina Marshall, along with Cheryl Bartlett from Cape Breton University, they coined the phrase. It's not a phrase that they made up, or it's not a concept that they made up. They've just articulated it so that we all can see what that, or understand it. And so that is the power of this Indigenous knowledge. It's not for people to take it, not to take Albert's words and use it in your papers. It's to work it, to live it. And so Ed and I, we spend a lot of time doing ceremony, and we talked about that today. And he's going to share a lot of lovely thoughts about who we are and why we do what we do. So Ed, you need to turn on your mic, that little microphone. There you go. Testing. Are you there?
That's one. That's two. First of all, we'll all in, Albert. We'll all in to Kathy. Quay, Eguano, no Lewis, DTOS, the wig, Nagutko. What about now? What's to go, Kel? What's to go, Kel? We kneel. We does them get stock. She mouse walking. First of all, I want to say hello to everybody and welcome everybody to our unceded and unsurrendered home of the Mi'kmaq and the Wolastoqey people, and the Penobscots and the Passamaquoddies, to our homeland, the people of the Dawn. My name is DTOS, which means a blue jay. And now that you guys all know my name, when you see the blue jay out there, that's me coming to visit. And I always tell people, caution them, that says, don't feed them blue jays because you can't get rid of them. And I live here in Nagutkuk, which is also known as the Tobic First Nation. Our home is situated by the river Wolastoq, which is known as St. John, and also our other river that flows through is what we call the Nagutkuk River, which is also known today as the Tobic River. So the Nagutkuk River flows into the Wolastoqey River, which flows into what we're going to get Squidman and CIOOS Zubeg. We're going to talk about this big water, what they call the ocean. In our language, we call it Zubeg. Zubeg, yeah. So it's important for acknowledgements for me. And first, I want to thank Patty Solis from MNCC, who had asked me before the holidays if I would be interested in this gathering today. And when I asked her what the gathering was about, she said, we're going to talk about the oceans. And I told her, I said, well, geez, Patty, I don't really know too much about the oceans. I said, other than it's a beautiful place. The ocean is a very beautiful place. And she hooked me up with Christina. And I also want to thank Christina for inviting me to this gathering today, which also led me to my friend, good friend, Kathy, and our elder, Albert. You know, Albert could also be known as Einstein. I don't know, but his last name is Marshall. But anyway, I want to thank each and every one of you. It's an honor for me to be part of this gathering today. And I just want to talk about the acknowledgements of why it's important for us. It's important for me. I was taught from a young boy, BHLA, it's been a long time ago where he was. You know, from my parents and my grandparents, they always said every day to pray and give give thanks for your life and give thanks for everything that's around us. We should always acknowledge, when we pray, we're asking a higher source, which also sometimes we call the Creator or the Great Spirit or God, asking Him for our wisdom and knowledge, the wisdom and guidance. And since I was asked from Patty to be part of this gathering today, I took tobacco. And tobacco is very important to Indigenous people. It's a gift that we use when we're acknowledging or asking. It's our gift to give back to our ancestors and to communicate, because they operate on a different frequency. And these are tools that we use, these gifts, like the prayer, our language, songs, the drum, dancing. These are communication tools. So I took that tobacco and I asked for wisdom and for guidance to help me today to be part of this gathering. Because when I think about the ocean, when I think about water, I think about life, and life is very sacred. And like Elder Albert said, and Kathy mentioned about our responsibility to make sure that we respect that life, to respect each other. And we think about the 4 gifts that was also brought to us to share amongst all the people of this world. This home that we live in, Mother Earth. The fire, the water, the air, and the earth. And when you think about the big water, the ocean, beneath the water is the land. And beneath the land is the fire, which is the magnesium that flows through the core of the earth. That's one of the gifts is the fire, water, air, and earth. And we're also taught to also acknowledge these gifts, because these elements not only help support or to sustain life, it also can take life. We've seen the power behind the water. We've seen the power behind the fire. We've seen the power behind the wind, and we've seen the power behind the earth. I myself, as a human being, don't possess any of these powers. I acknowledge these powers or these gifts, and I utilize them. When we think about, and these elements all have memory. They all have spirit. The water possesses a spirit, the spirit of the water, the spirit of the fire, the spirit of the wind, and the spirit of the earth. Anything that has life has a spirit. And the ocean, it sustains life, the fish that live in the waters. It also helps sustain who we are as human beings, as Indigenous people. Skijin Nil, I'm a human being. And these elements have memory, what we call memory, since the time of their existence. And they don't work separately, they work together. And maybe these elements are letting us know that we're not being respectful, like today. I'll show you my most respect, and in return, all we expect back, or I expect back, is respect. And when we stop respecting the things that help support and sustain our lives, these elements ain't gonna respect us either. It's like, when Christina was sharing earlier about an observation, that growing up, was able to observe. And You know, for me, growing up, I learned from a lot of the Western academic philosophy, but I also never forgot about our indigenous, you know, wisdom and philosophy. And it's always important to observe your environment and your elements that you live in. So as a little boy, being brought up and growing up here at home in Nagutu, we utilized the water as kids, you know, for cooking, for cleaning, for drinking, recreationally. We swam in it, we played in it. It was a very important resource. And our parents taught us that orally, because we're oral people. You know, we're storytellers, and we tell our stories orally and share orally with other people. It's like if you, to me, if you want to know a person, know their story. If you want to know other people, know their stories. The stories about the water, you know, the story about the elements. And about a week ago, I was sharing with Christina about one of my observations as a little boy. When we used to swim up at the beach in the Nagutuk River, we used to be able to dive down there and open our eyes, and we could look for white rocks at the bottom of the riverbed. And as time went by, we could tell about how the forestry companies were, you know, having more cutting being done. When it would rain, you could tell by the shores, the water along the shoreline was brown. And each year when it rained, you know, that extended. So we knew how much cutting was being done in the forest. After a while, came to a point where when it rained, the whole river was muddy. So we knew that something was going on. Today, I wouldn't even dare to open my eyes in that water, you know, because my eyeballs might fall out, eh? But these are the observations, you know, that, and this is the indigenous wisdom, the knowledge that our ancestors had, that our elders had, and they'll pass it down to us. Everybody talks about everything else on how the water is being affected, how the ocean is being affected. But nobody really wants to talk about the clear cutting. Because there's a reason and a purpose for the trees to be where they're at. There's a reason and a purpose for the water to be where it's at. It has its place in the world. Same with the air and the fire. They have their place in the world as well. These are the things that help sustain and support our lives. You know, like growing up, the ocean, you know, it was really unknown. You know, we would stick closely to along the coastal shore, or we'd sometimes go further out, you know, where we thought it would be safe, because we didn't want to endanger our lives. But at the same time, you know, the ocean was a food source. You know, it's like today, if I want fish, I can go to the grocery store. But before that, we used to go to the rivers and we used to go to the ocean to get our groceries, to get the fish. And the fish help, you know, with our nutrition, with our bodies. You know, and today, we don't have that opportunity. You heard Elder Marshall talk about rights. You know, these ain't privileges, these are rights. And when people look at, you know, the definition of what a right is, and these are inherent rights. And earlier on, he mentioned about, I don't want to use the word man-made laws because it's offensive to women. I'd rather use human-made laws. Also, we got to remember there's nature law too. And that's something that us as the human beings can't control. No one can control the power of these elements. We try. And when you try to manipulate these elements, it ain't very good. So there's a lot of thoughts that run through my mind, about sharing. And I want to quote one elder, passed away, and is the noble red man, Matthew King. And he said it's time for the indigenous people to share with the world about who we are and what we know from our perspectives. Like Albert uses the two lens or the two-eyed seeing. For years, we heard from the non-indigenous lens about how they seen the world, or how they seen the ocean, or how they seen whatever existed. And we've always tried to share our lens. And when given the opportunity to share our views and our perspectives on how we see things and how we think about things, to me, that's respect when you use that two-eyed seeing approach from the Elder Marshall. We always believe that if people work closely together and help one another out, I know that we would get further ahead in life. And to also try to protect what we have left in this home that we live in for the future generations. Governments, politicians always mention the elderly, always mention the children. Us as people, if we don't stand up together and stop what's going on today, we won't have to worry about our children tomorrow because there'll be nothing left for them. There's a lot of contributing factors on why the world is. It ain't so much the world, it's the people that live in this world. The world's okay. It's the people. Sometimes including myself, I'm not going to exclude myself. Maybe because I was disrespectful in some way to another person, or maybe to the life, the birds, or the animals. Even that, at a young age, we're taught when we take another life for subsistence, for food. Like if we go fishing and we catch a trout or a bass or whatever it is we're fishing for and we catch that, we offer that tobacco and give thanks for that certain species giving up its life for us to sustain ours. When we go cut a tree down, we kill a moose, we always offer that tobacco and give thanks for that life, for that certain species, for giving up their lives to help sustain ours. For 100 years or so, that our ceremonies and our culture was taken away from us. We weren't able to practice our ceremonies or to share our culture because the government made a law that Indians couldn't practice their rituals or ceremonies or culture. It wasn't until 1976 that when Indigenous people had the right to practice what they refer to as a religion. All the spirituality ain't religion. Spirituality is a way of life. And we've never forgotten that, even though the government tried, or not tried, they did take that away from us for some time. Our language. Language is very important because language has a different meaning. Our language is descriptive. Trying to translate something, a Maliseet word or a Mi'kmaq word into English is difficult. It's not the same language as English. Very fortunate to still be able to have my language, to be able to speak my language, even though they try to take that away from us. My understanding today that the only reason why government did that or politicians did that was because they believed that our ceremonies and our culture were inferior to them. They didn't understand it. Like when I talk about the frequencies, or the rhythm, vibration. These elements also have, vibrations. They operate on frequencies, like our ancestors, the spirits. They operate on what they call frequencies. When you think about everything that exists in this home we call Mother Earth, operates under frequencies. It's like when Kathy played the drum earlier, and that sound resonated out. Or just like dropping a pebble in a calm water, and it ripples out. It resonates out. Same way when we light a fire, and the smoke we see, it resonates out. And just because we can't see that with our naked eye, it travels. These sounds travel. That's why when I hear our people say, we lost this and we lost that, we didn't lose nothing. Still here. Them songs and them stories and them prayers still exist within the wind, within the earth, within the fire, and within the water. And the trees. Trees are very important as well, standing ones. There are relatives too. When we use our language and I say the word Dalhousie, see Dalhousie, even the word, they say that our language is Mi'kmaq, Maliseet, Ojibwe, Cree. They call it the Algonquin languages. Even that word itself, that means Elagomuk. Elagomuk means to our relatives. We're the second largest speaking dialect in the world, the Elagomuk. Our relations, our relatives. And we say all our relations, it's not just talking about humans. It's talking about everything that's here in this home. That's one thing we all have in common, that we all share in common as human beings. Regardless of where we live, our ethnic background, these four elements, these four gifts. Also shared with Christina about the three gifts, the three other gifts, which were the physical, material world, and the spiritual world, and the supernatural world. if you think about what's going on with society today, the physical, material gift, people have a hold on that. They're only trying to generate wealth. They're worrying about the economy. Well, we don't protect and respect the life that's out there. There won't be nothing left. So we use that material and the physical gift with the spiritual gift, and we create a balance. Then the supernatural gift will come to help us. But if we're using one of these two gifts in a bad way, in a disrespectful way, supernatural gift ain't going to come and help us. Because the supernatural gift ain't going to help me or help anybody else destroy what we have in this world or in this Mother Earth we call. I think right now I'm getting a little myself ahead of myself, and because I didn't really prepare today what I was going to say. I guess when I prayed and asked for guidance, asked for the wisdom, what I'm sharing with you today was meant for me to share. Otherwise, I would have maybe been speaking about something else. I don't know how I'm doing for time.
You're doing just fine.
Okay, thank you.
If you want, we could have some discussion between the two of you, or we could ask some people for questions. But if you have more to speak about, we're going to go with it.
All right, then. Thank you, Christina. I just wanted to share today, especially if there's other Indigenous folks that are listening today. I'm sure. And the other thing I want to say is that maybe nobody understands what I'm saying, and that's okay. I guess as long as you appreciate, what I'm sharing with you today. Because when we talked about early on, they mentioned truth and reconciliation. Well, if we don't share the truth, and this is only my truth, the truth of my own understanding, I share that. If we don't acknowledge the truth, then we're never going to be able to come to what we call reconciliation. People don't want to hear the truth. They just want to move ahead. Move ahead and just talk about reconciliation. It's okay too. But I think it's important to acknowledge the truth. And when we use, I don't like use the word teaching. I'm not a teacher. But like when we look at what they refer to as the seven grandfathers teachings, we talked about respect, talked about truth, honesty, love, courage. I'm not a change agent. I can't change what's going on in the world. I can't change the people's thinking. The only thing I could change is how I see things, how I think about things. Because my thoughts, my feelings, and my opinions are important. Just like everybody else's thoughts and feelings and opinions are important. We might not always agree with one another. And that's okay. What's important is that we respect one another on what your thoughts are what your feelings are and what your opinions are. It's okay to, what is it? Agree to disagree. But I believe that if we have mutual respect, at one time I didn't respect who I was. Therefore, I didn't respect anything that was outside of me. Maybe because I had a lack of knowing who I was. I've always been proud of who I was. Once I learned to respect myself, who I am, where I come from, I had to learn this. I learned it not by university or going to school. I learned it in nature. One time, Reverend Poaches, God rest his soul, told me, Herb, I want to know who I am and where I come from. He said, you want to know who you are and where you come from? I said, yes, I do. In the back of his home, he had a forest. He said, if you really want to know who you are, where you came from, he said, your family is waiting for you to teach you. And being naive as I was, I'm thinking in my mind, I didn't say it out loudly, but this old man's crazy, he said. My family, where? I looked there. I didn't get it right away till later. We have a wonderful opportunity here to have inclusion, not exclusion. And we also just not to have to include the humans, but we also have to include the animals, the birds, the fish, the trees, everything that's here, the bugs. There's a purpose for them to be here. There's a reason for them to be here. Who's going to advocate for them? We let industry just go ahead and take whatever it is they want, only to benefit, economically or become wealthy.
Yeah.
You see that going on. But everybody is complicit sometimes because of who we work for. Maybe I work for the government. Maybe I work for these corporations. Even though we know that what is going on is wrong, and we don't say nothing, we're just as responsible as well. Because we all have something else in common. A lot of us have children. A lot of us have grandchildren. A lot of us have nieces, nephews, brothers, sisters. Some are older, some are younger, some ain't even here yet. How about the kids that ain't here yet? What are we going to do to help protect, for them? And words are only words. Actions will speak louder than the words. I know we don't control government. We influence government. And these policies that are in place today are probably outdated, probably 150 years old or more since Canada established itself. Doesn't meet today's needs. So with that, I just want to thank each and every one of you for allowing me to share today. And I'll end by saying, if nobody told each and every one of you that they love you, I want you to know that CIOOS loves you. No matter where you are in the world, always remember that this day. When you think that nobody loves you, remember to say, hey, that blue jay's out there in the world somewhere. He loves us. because he told us.
Eh.
Waliwin, Walalin, Miigwech, Mercy Bako, thank you.
Walalin, it up. Hmm.
Can I mute myself now or?
You could, you might have to come back on, you never know.
Okay, I'll stay
So
open.
we have a little bit of time, not a lot, and so I was trying to figure out what's the best thing to do here. I'd love to hear a little bit from Albert about what he just heard from Ed, or anything that he wanted to remind us of. I do love the whole concept of the law of the land. And if we think more about it, it might be one of the answers, to follow the law of the land. Another thing that I've thought about, I'm so fortunate that I'm able to live off a reservation. And I was able to find a home on the ocean before I couldn't afford it. A long time ago, I bought a little camp and I live on the ocean. I see the ocean every day, all day long, every night. And that, I believe, is a Mi'kmaq way that was taken from us. Not, our people don't get to choose where they want to live unless they find a financial way. And so by ripping us away from the places we were responsible for, the oceans and the woods and the coastlines and the places in our territory, there's been an imbalance, and we need to be given the opportunity to go back to where we want to be. You can stay in the communities, but we also need the freedom. My friend, good friend and elder, Charlie Labrador of Wildcat, told me about the law of the land, that we have to listen to the law of the land, not of man. And he said, the whales are going to be coming close to shore, and the dolphins, and we need to pay attention to why that's happening, what's going on. Our relationship, not just to each other, which is part of our treaty, that we need to build relationships, it's also our relationship to the land. So with that, Albert, there's lots of thank yous to Albert and Edward. None to me though, I don't know why, no. So I want to give the floor to Albert again, because this is an opportunity we get to hear from him. Albert, you got that mic on?
Yeah, thank you very much for giving me, now. The other, but one thing I do want to put forward as a request is that you as a facilitator, and I don't know if you are the organizer of this, Kathy, but not so much what we said, but I'm just wondering how many out there would feel comfortable enough for each to submit some kind of a reflection of coming up with something in which could be transformed as an action item, as to how will we be able to move forward with this notion or objective of transformative change. Because if there is no concerted effort put forth that there is a need of some kind of a transformative change, then, not facetiously, but I would dare ask, then what would be the primary purpose then of us coming together today? Is it just to hear stories, or are we really serious of contemplating that something has to change? And I don't know how many people here would look upon the challenges we are facing at this point in time, which is that COVID-19. I believe it's possible that virus could have been much more deadlier. But no, I believe our Mother Earth is using that virus to wake us up, for us to begin to start reflecting. And as I said earlier, to actually put ourselves in a fork of a road. From one fork, we know where we come from. And we do have a prerogative. Are we going to move forward in the same road, business as usual? Or are we going to seriously reflect and admit of not where we came from and how we got here, and how much devastation we have created through our own inactions, denials, and silences? Because I believe those denials, inactions, and inaction were used against us. They were used as if we were condoning of what they are doing. Now, unless we commit ourselves to amplifying our voices from here on in, that it cannot and should not be business as usual. We have to somehow come together and draw the lessons that we need to learn of ensuring that not only this present generation will have a future, but also the future generations will also be able to sustain themselves and appreciate nature as it was intended for all of us to be. So this is the only message that I would like to convey, is that because unless we can agree that in order for us to work collectively and in the spirit of co-learning, we all have to be given the opportunity as to how and when can we share these stories. Because as these stories are being exchanged, we will all know who we are, where we come from, and why we are here. And hopefully, as an Aboriginal person, we will now begin to plan of what we do with that 4W. Where are we going? We have not had a chance to include that 4W as yet, because the relationship has not even evolved to a point in which we all know who we are, where we come from, and why we are here. Because it's going to be essential because through this exchange, we will know what special gifts that you may have in which we can use of enhancing the holistic approach that we have to take from here on in. Because it should become obvious for all of us that we all have been given certain gifts and skills, and for those gifts and skills to be used for the benefit of all. And of course, that includes humans and Maliseet, all of creation. Because the short period of time we may be here, again, we don't have that prerogative to do anything that will compromise not only the present ecological integrity of the area, but also to be very mindful that we're not going to be compromising the future generations of their abilities as to how they can sustain themselves, and to continuously appreciate and learn from nature. And I believe ideally where we should begin at this juncture, of course, is through the education system. Because what I'm seeing, the education system has been very successfully transformed us to be a #1 exploiters. Isn't it about time we transform this knowledge in which we will also be able to appreciate, respect, and honor the very source of life in which we all depend upon. Well, and thank you.
Well, we have lots of lovely comments and questions coming in, and we're not going to have the time to answer them here. So I'm hoping that what Albert said and Ed is that all of you that are attending, all 72 or 3, are important to hear your voice, because collectively that's how we're going to move forward. One of the ways. The ocean, as I told you, taught me so much about the power and our, how small we are and how ridiculous it is to think that we can conquer oceans and fires and whatever, because we can't. That's the oceans are here to give us life. And the water ceremonies that we do here, we do lots of water ceremonies to thank the water and to acknowledge the water. And Diane Obid said, Diane is on this, and she comes from Dal, and I just love being with Diane. She says that we need to bring back land-based education, or bring in land-based education. When I go to places like Tatamagouche Center, which is a gorgeous, beautiful, sacred place, I think this is where our children, our young people should be. They should be learning outside. That's where the learning and lots of great stuff happens. And I think COVID is telling us that we can change the way we learn. It doesn't always have to be the way that one society taught us to learn, to sit in a chair and look at the front of the room. There's many ways to learn, and why not reconnect the people with the land? That's a great way of healing. I also know that we have lots of comments and greetings again from around the world. And I just wonder if our friend, the Maori friend who's been sending us a message, maybe has something they might add to this from that other side of the continent. I forget who you are here. I got to go back up. Oh, yeah. How can we move forward with these reflections? Oh, that was Albert's word. Okay. At this point, I ask, I'm trying to find the time. Okay, we have 2 minutes. Hey, we did really well, you two. Thank you. We're getting pretty good at paying attention to time, eh? We try. I'm gonna close with a song, not a chant. It's a song and a chant that came to me. But I'd like to ask Ed just to give us a closing prayer before to close this session, not to close the conference, because we're continuing with that after we speak. Malustok?
Good. Well, Leon, Dalhousie, Gijolina Smitaps Negusin. Dalhousie Mosum Sanok Musiki Pog Negusin. Leon Gumach Bemgiska, also walking. Leona Bemgiska, Gialgiska, Ujimuk. Leon up, did we joke him? Joke him even, we joke him even. Ciut, Spulmanen, Jobek. Naga nid majiga, yawa majip to nyanida, yakil wagonip tonito. Una suduinen, 1K winen, Zal Morgan septuinen. Uchu gawa gazal mopa, Yukena gazal manen, Iglage, all my relations. Thank you.
Albert, any last offering or prayer before I sing?
No, I'm all set. Go ahead and sing, Kathy.
All right. This is for the Mother Earth and the waters. And I was reminded that when one of you were talking about the water and it has memory, the turtle, the ancient turtle, has memory from that time, and we must protect them to keep that. The languages that Albert and Ed are sharing with us, they guide us, they tell us how to be here and wherever you are. Your language speaks to where we should be and how we should be. Way oh hey, oh way oh hi, hey oh, oh way oh hey hey hey, oh way oh hey 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 hey, oh way oh hey hey hey, oh way oh hey hey. When an elder dies, a child is born, and the moon she will rise o'er the setting sun, and she'll move the ocean tides with the power of her mind. A new dawn breaks o'er the horizon as night sky fades into the rising sun, and life she goes on as time heals the pain. Oh way oh hey, oh way oh hi, hey oh, oh way oh hey hey hey, oh way oh hey 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 hey, oh way oh hey hey hey, oh way oh hey hey. Oh. Thank you. And now we're going back to our host, Christina.
Thank you, Catherine, for your beautiful words. And thank you for moderating the elders discussion. CIOOS and Albert, thank you so much for sharing with us today, for reminding ourselves to love ourselves and to love the other creatures that are also on this planet with us. And, you know, for your challenging words. Edward, you spoke about being complicit, and Albert, you put a challenge out there that, you know, words are not enough. This discussion is intended to explore ways that we might bring Indigenous knowledge and Western systems of knowing the ocean together. But that's going to take a lot of work, and it's not just words, it's actions too. And that's certainly something that I will be reflecting deeply on, as will my teammates at CIOOS Atlantic. And if anyone would like to share their own reflection with us in terms of how they, you know, across the world would like to, you know, take actions, then please do share that with us. And we'd be happy to capture that in the final report that we intend on sharing with everyone. And certainly we again here at CIOOS will be thinking very hard. This discussion is intended to allow us to learn and to deepen our relationships, but we do hope that it is really the beginning of not just a conversation, but some actions that we can take together. So thank you again, elders, and thank you, Catherine. Thank you all of you, the attendees, for joining us today. I really appreciate you coming in from wherever you are and for taking this time to listen carefully to what is being shared and how it's being shared. I'd like to remind you that our next discussion will take place on February 2nd. This is going to be a panel discussion, And our guest speakers will discuss the legal, ethical, and value considerations that surround digitizing and sharing Indigenous knowledge and data. And our third and final discussion on February 16th, our guest speakers there will share regional, national, and international success stories about coastal and ocean knowledge and data collaborations between Indigenous and non-Indigenous peoples and organizations. So we will be privileged to hear from our guest speakers about the actions that they are taking, that certainly me and my people at CIOOS Atlantic will be learning from. So thank you all again, and I hope to see you on February 2nd and February 16th.
Thank you, Christine, and I promised I would sing you out, so you don't have to listen. You can just start kicking off as we sing out. Remember that our water that we're made of comes from our very, very first grandmothers, and we still carry that water. It's in the we have that memory. And so I ask wherever you are, whether you're at the ocean, where you are in the world, that you go to the water and thank the water for today, for bringing us, Ed and Albert and all of you together. Yo ya he ya he yo. Thank you, Great Spirit, for thunder in the sky. Thanks for the seasons that are part of life. Thanks for the daytime and for the night. And thanks for the way of our life. Yo ya he ya he yo ya he yo ya he ya he yo ya he yo ya he ya he yo ya he yo ya he ya he yo yo ya he ya he yo. Tahoe. Multus. Nobody wants to leave.
Yeah.
Gotta go.
Can we get an encore?
Huh?
If we stay, maybe you'll play another song.
I'll play another song. Nobody has to stay. Oh, Elder Edward, how about a song?
Okay, since we're leaving, I'll sing the journey song, eh?
Yes. No matter where you're going, safe travels. Holland. I think we should just have a conference of just singing. That's it. No talking, just sing, 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 sing. We do that a lot, Ed and I, in our gatherings. So thanks, everybody. And your comments, I pray that will be shared to everybody so we can tighten up this circle. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, everyone. It was wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Please.
Thank you.